Yeah, soldiers. So, my first Pokemon video in a very, very long time. So, we're going to be looking at a video by Carlos Juico, who made the Hiruzen video on that little podcast we did a while back, talking about the darkest Pokemon conspiracy theories. So, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and now without further ado, let's get right into the main topic. So, the first theory was sent in by Michelle Tanina, and she asked Carlos about, well, hey, what about that as coma theory, though, right? And that theory is something that a lot of people have been looking at for a very long time, because it kinda makes sense. I mean, primarily this has been used to try to figure out why the hell Ash doesn't really age. Even though in the series he has actually aged up to age 11, he hasn't really aged as much as we think he should, because of the fact that, well, there have been specials where he actually did turn 11 back in the past, but that apparently got retconned. Yeah, I know. Someone literally turned 11 got fucking retconned. Now, personally, in my opinion, I really disagree with this theory, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, it would have to be a very, very elaborate dream for Ash to be going on these journeys and imagining specific people from the freaking franchise. It is like one thing to just like think to yourself, okay, well, I'm gonna travel around the Kanto region and I'm just gonna go catch all these Pokemon and go get the gym badges and shit, and that's all well and good. But, like, it's another thing to, like, dream up of, like, specific characters like May, Dawn, Iris, Serena from, I guess you could say that's your one win there, because Serena was a childhood friend of Ash, even though he probably didn't remember her until the moment she met him back in Kalos. Not to mention freaking Silent, Clement, like, all these characters and stuff, and all these regions. It would have to be one of the most elaborate dream coma states we've ever seen. Also, if Ash is really kind of like, you know, dreaming about all this, wouldn't he probably make himself into a better trainer and probably won the freaking Kanto League? No? Well, unfortunately for him, he kind of had to wait a long time to get his first chip, and then got his second chip the year afterwards. But, you know, it's whatever. I mean, the first one was a Mickey Mouse one, so I guess I had to make it up for that somehow. Carlos tried to add on to this theory, saying that, well, every situation Ash and company fights, they seem to get out just fine, and it's a magical adventure, but there have been situations where Ash has nearly died, and the most significant one is when he first faced off against Mewtwo. On top of that, there are other situations where he had to face off against world-ending threats, such as Team Magma and Aqua, along with Team Galactic, and on top of that, he had to face off against freaking Team Rocket when they were trying to do that stuff in the Gen 5 anime, where they were utilizing Melwet to summon the freaking genies and put them in their Furion forms. Like, I just can't really say this theory is plausible with all these factors considered. Now let's move on to the next theory. Now, this next theory is Lavender Town Syndrome theory, and what this theory talks about is, well, extremely dark. So in the original Pokemon Red and Green releases, as the theory goes, there are a bunch of binaural beats that were in the original Lavender Town theme, and the theory goes that this caused a bunch of young children in Japan to off themselves. Now, I really need y'all to kind of, like, think about that for a second, and then realize I don't think that really would be the case. The thing about that type of music is that, one, that would have been a massive freaking lawsuit back in the freaking 1990s, and I don't think Pokemon would even be where it is today at all, if not completely dissolved, because the Pokemon company got sued into oblivion due to these so-called binaural beats. This is just basically a creepypasta theory that literally just, like, spawned out of nowhere, and doesn't really have anything to do with the actual show at all. It's just, like, creepypasta lore, which is just not really, you know, It's not really true at all, so I don't know why this was there. It's just like, I just can't really vibe with this theory really being possible at all. It's just flat out false. Because again, if this would have been a massive freaking shitstorm back in the freaking 90s, especially during that point in time where Pokemon would eventually get in trouble for seizures that happen all over Japan due to freaking Porygon. So, no, I can't really just, like, vibe with that at all. Sorry. This next theory is called the Pokemon War Theory. Now, there is some reference to this in the original Red, Blue, and Yellow games, where Lieutenant Surge talked about a war before you fought him in his gym battle. But this is literally supposed to be talking about why there aren't any adults in the Pokemon world, which is not really the case at all. We've seen bikers, we've seen freaking Lieutenant Surge, Blaine, and all these other people that, yeah, Giovanni, the Rocket Grunts, all these people in the Pokemon world. And this theory is usually primarily said to, like, why you don't really see any adults in the Pokemon world, yet there are adults that are shown in the Pokemon world. So, while I do agree that there could have possibly been a war before the events of Red and Blue started, or maybe way before that actually, but to explain why there aren't a lot of adults in the Pokemon world, or as Carlos will later add on to this, why there are so many new species of Pokemon popping up, just doesn't really work for me. Because there's also hidden lore amongst all these other Pokemon that kind of just is like invalidated because, oh, it was created from a nuclear war or some stuff, or whatever crap. Even though if a nuclear war also did happen, a lot of civilizations would be freaking dead. Now, the next theory, I actually think there's some form of possibility to it. So, this is talking about the baby Kangaskhan theory, where Cubone is actually a baby Kangaskhan that lost its mother, and the skull that Cubone wears on its head is actually Kangaskhan's, which it grows into when it evolves into a Marowak. Now, there is some hidden, like, hints to this, in my opinion, that kind of make this theory a bit plausible, and I also have been a little more inclined to think that, like, at some point during the development of Red and Blue and stuff, there was meant to be some form of lore connection to a Kangaskhan and Cubone, obviously, but what that was, we'll never fully know. But I think that this theory can actually fill in the blanks as to why Cubone is wearing the skull of his dead mother, and it keeps that when it evolves into a Marowak. So, to be honest, I think there's some plausibility to this theory, and I actually think this is one of the best theories so far, to be honest. The next theory that we're going to be talking about is the Gengar, Clefable, Shadow theory. Alright, due to the fact that ghost Pokemon have established lore of being essentially, well, dead, I can't really subscribe to the Gengar, Clefable, Shadow theory too much. However, there is some evidence that could actually point to it to being a possibility, such as one, shadows tend to be a bit taller when you stand out in the sun and you're trying to follow and such. Now, you might be thinking, what does that have to do with Clefable and Gengar? Well, Gengar is around 8 inches taller than Clefable. Unfortunately, due to the fact that this would virtually contradict a lot of lore that we know about ghost Pokemon, I can't really subscribe to this theory so much, so not plausible at all. Also, that thing about, like, Gengar and Clefable not being able to touch each other, like, have y'all heard of type coverage? However, the fact that Carlos Soler suggests, wait, what if, like, Gengar is actually a spirit of Clefable, actually would make that little things a little bit more interesting. Unfortunately, due to the fact that a little bit of height difference and such, I don't fully know how possible that is. But with the similarities that are pointed out by the original theory of Gengar being Clefable's shadow, it is a possibility. This next theory talks about Ditto being a failed Mew clone. I've heard this theory a lot, and to be honest, I do find it a little bit interesting. And it is a possibility that it could explain, despite there being 9 generations of Pokemon, Ditto and Mew are the only 2 Pokemon that no transform. However, I do have one bit of a problem. If Ditto was a failed Mew clone, well, my question for that would have to be, how the hell did it gain the ability to breed? I'm very serious about this, by the way, because Mew and Mewtwo, by extension, both have lore that state that they cannot breed. In fact, none of the legendary Pokemon can really breed at all. So I don't really understand how these clones gain that ability to breed if there's some sort of failed Mew clone or whatever. I mean, yeah, they become blobs and stuff, but how the hell did they gain the ability to breed? I get you could try to like chalk it up to like being, oh well, it's because they're just a failed clone. But how far can like a failed clone go? Like, how the hell did they gain the ability to be one of the most breedable Pokemon in existence from a Pokemon that cannot breed? I'm being very serious when I say this. I can't really... I think there's some plausibility to this theory, but this one thing is kind of where I have to be like, okay, I like the theory, but I don't think it's possible, unfortunately, or plausible. So, let's move on to the next theory. Next theory is Mimikyu actually being a dead Pichu. Now, the way this theory goes is that Mimikyu, who is a Pokemon that looks up to Pikachu, is a Pichu that never had the chance to evolve. And to me, this has to be the best theory to me, because there is established lore that points out to the fact that ghost Pokemon usually come from dead mons. So I think that this is with that type of lore connecting to everything, that's a huge possibility. We have seen that Pichu tries to dress up as Pikachu, but probably doesn't really have any idea how to do that completely, so the only image that it knows is to dress up like a Pichu, relatively, and I have to say that, with all that considered, this is a very possible theory. Again, there's established lore that ghost Pokemon are from dead Pokemon or dead humans, and to be honest, if I was a betting man and I had to bet on which of these theories is the most plausible, I have to say it's this theory. And now moving on to the final theory of the video, it's the legendary dogs theory. You know how it goes at this point if you know Pokemon. Ho-Oh revived a Jolteon, a Flareon, and a Vaporeon after the Burn Tower fire, and they became the legendary dogs. Now, as much as I like this theory, there isn't a lot of lore that can kind of hint to this possibility besides obviously this theory, and to me, I just can't really say it's a very high possibility. I do like the theory, but I just can't really say that it has a very high possibility of being likely due to the fact that the Pokedex lore kind of just like doesn't really point out to this, besides again that there was a fire back at some point in Johto's history and everything else. Also, while you could make the argument that Raikou and Suicune look pretty similar to Vaporeon and Jolteon, Entei doesn't really look like a Flareon to me. So, I can't really subscribe to this theory. I like it, but I can't subscribe to it. So, that's all the theories. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Shout out to our patrons and to our patrons. Get to like Knife Slasher. Even more shows like these, can be patrons link in the description. That's what it's for this video. This has been your boy, signing out. Peace or ha. Cue that outro. Bye-bye. Peace.